Hi everyone, my name is Sarah. Welcome to my channel where I talk about books. So this is my January wrap up. So today I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read in January of 2025. And if you're new here, my name is Sarah and I'm new to BookTube, so I'd love to get to know you and meet you and chat about books with you. So let's jump in. I read 4 books in January. Nothing like blew me out of the water this month, and I wish I had a little more time to read this month, but it has been a month. I feel like after the holidays I'm always really drained because it's just like spending so much time with family and friends, and it's like always fun but just hard to like unwind. Without further ado, I will get to the 4 books that I did get a chance to read this month. So here are 3 of them. The 4th one was from the library, but I will start my favorite book that I read in January, and that is Flight by Lynn Steaker-Strong. So I talked about this in my best books of 2024, but my fiance and I buy each other books on Christmas Eve, and with the intention of reading them on Christmas Eve, and then we end up not reading them on Christmas Eve. But this was the book that he got for me in Christmas of 2023, and it's set in the Catskills, which is like a mountain range in upstate New York that is one of my favorite places in the world. And so it's set in the Catskills, and it's set like right on Christmas Eve, and it follows a family celebrating Christmas together. So after I had received it, I didn't get a chance to read it in 2023, so I saved it to be able to read around Christmas time of this year, because I just feel like I just wanted to be immersed in like the holidays and all of that while reading this book. But anyways, this novel follows somewhat of like a dysfunctional family celebrating their first Christmas since their mother passed away. So it's 3 siblings, and they're all adult siblings, so they have children of their own, and they're all grappling with different issues in each of their lives. And their mother was kind of the person in the family that held them all together. She was basically the glue. And so when she passed away, things just kind of started to fall apart. And so since they all used to spend their holidays together, they wanted to do it again this year since their mother passed away. And this year, Allison and Henry, Henry being one of the sons, hosted at their house in the Catskills. And this is like quite the juxtaposition for this family, because typically they spend Christmas in Florida where their mom used to live. So they're like used to putting their feet in the sand on Christmas and like feeling the sun, but instead they're in this like snowy, icy mountain town. So Allison, who's Henry's wife, recently got a new job as a social worker, but prior to that, her and her husband were artists, and they kind of lived in like this remote area, and Henry really likes to focus on like climate change related art, but they're kind of struggling to make ends meet because of, you know, artists not being paid super well. So she decides to use her degree that she got in social work, and she goes on to be a social worker. And then you have Kate and Josh, and Kate is the daughter, and she's the only daughter. So as you can imagine, she's experiencing the loss of her mother in a different way than her brothers are. Kate and Josh have 3 kids, and they're also dealing with financial issues. So Kate really kind of wants this Christmas to be perfect, because she wants to relive all of these traditions that her mother had them do at their Christmases. But of course, you know, it's like not the same. So her and Josh and their kids, they also wanted to use this holiday as an opportunity to talk with the rest of their family about potentially taking the house that their mother lived in Florida. And this is like something that's super meaningful to Kate emotionally, but also financially, because they're struggling to make ends meet. So you have so far Henry and Kate, and then Tess and Martin are our final adult children. So Martin is the son, and Tess is his wife, and Martin recently got into like some issues at his place of work, and Tess is like very type A, like incredible lawyer, gets shit done, like she is like amazing, but very tied up. And so anyways, this whole novel just kind of, it's a very short novel, 230 pages. But this novel follows all of the children, like grieving their mother or mother-in-law, and learning how their relationships are changing. Again, because the mother was the glue of the family. But overall, I thought that this book was okay. I think there's a whole other storyline in this book about two people that live in the town that are Allison's social work clients. And I think that that storyline was just kind of like a bit too much to add to this story, that I think there was so much more to dig into about these family members. So for me, that's like one of the only things that took me out of it, because I just wanted to learn more about the dynamics between all of these different family members. But yeah, so overall, I gave this book 3.5 stars. I definitely recommend it if you're into like family dramas, and especially things around Christmas. It was an easy read and just like something nice to read around the holiday season. Next, I read Ice by Anna Kavan, and this book was written in 1967, and it's a fever dream. It's an icy fever dream. So in this novel, we follow an unnamed narrator who's a man, and he hops from country to country, trying to find this unnamed woman and trying to save her. And as he's doing this, ice is taking over the entire world. So like every single place is just being covered in like these massive glaciers. And so he wants to save this woman. I picked this book up because I love reading books about ice and winter, and I just like really thought it was a great time to read this. And when I bought this at a used bookstore, the back says that it is a speculative literary dreamscape. It's feminist and dystopian and apocalyptic, and talks about climate change. But those are most of my favorite genres. Those are things I love to read about: feminism, climate change, speculative fiction, and dystopias. And like, I wanted so badly to like this. I just didn't love it. I don't know. It was just so bleak, and just like unrelentingly bleak. It's just like coldness and death just like continued to prevail no matter what. And I think I just like needed a little bit of hope. But our narrator is obsessed with this woman, and he both like wants to save her but also hurt her. And this woman is incredibly frail and pale, and like literally I could probably snap her with my pinky. And like throughout this entire story, our narrator is like, she was abused as a child, so she's like a perpetual victim. And so as we follow him, like following her around this world, and she's being taken by this guy called the warden, and we're suspecting that maybe the warden is abusing her. And we get to the end of the story, and I won't spoil exactly what happens, but like essentially we're meant to learn that like even though he's been saying, oh, I want to be a hero, I want to do all this stuff, like he's kind of a piece of shit. But I don't know, I just kind of was like, I got that from the beginning. Like I'm starting to realize something about my reading taste. That's I don't think I like books that say that they're fever dreams. I think I just get so lost. And like there's so many points in this novel where our narrator is hallucinating, and so you're like questioning what's real, what's not real. And I'm just like, I don't know, there's just a part of me that's like, just tell me what's real. I just like need to know. So I struggle with that a little bit. But yeah, I ultimately I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. And what really saved this book for me was the way that Kavan writes about ice, because it's stunning. Like it's beautiful. Like let's see if I can find so on page 21 it says, the world had become an Arctic prison from which no escape was possible. All its creatures trapped as securely as were the trees, already lifeless inside their deadly resplendent armor. As her fate, she accepted the world of ice, shining, shimmering, dead. She resigned herself to the triumph of glaciers and the death of her world. And so, like, she writes really beautifully about ice. But other than that, it was just kind of like frustrating and boring. This was another part that I really loved about her writing about the ice. She says, then something extraordinary out of this world. A wall of rainbow ice jutting up from the sea, cutting right across, pushing a ridge of water ahead of it as it moved, as if the flat, pale surface of sea was a carpet being rolled up. It was a sinister, fascinating sight, which did not seem intended for human eyes. The moon's dead eye watching the death of our world. And so there are moments that were really stunning and beautiful, but I just couldn't get past some of the cruelty. And I don't mind reading books about cruelty. It's just that it just felt like it was trying to prove a point to me that I already agreed with. And yeah, I think the only other thing I'll say about ice is that Anna Kavan, like, I read a little bit about her when reading this book, and she struggled for most of her life with addiction. And a lot of people think that ice is a metaphor for her addiction. I think it was one of the last, if not the last book that she wrote before she unfortunately passed away at a somewhat young age. And I can understand, especially the narrator, who's just like so obsessed with like finding this woman and saving her. It definitely gave me like vibes of like, or it definitely reminded me of an addiction that he's just like senselessly, unexplainably like following this woman. But yeah, I think that like, yeah, I don't know. It just was underwhelming for me, and I wanted it to be more than it was. But that's Ice by Anna Kavan. The next book I read in January of 2025, I rented from the library, which was super exciting because it's actually the first library book that I've rented from my new library in the town that I live in. And so I don't have a copy, but I'll put it up on the screen. It was Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati. And so this book I read for a book club that I'm in, and it's a Greek myth retelling about Clytemnestra, who was the wife of Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae. I am so over Greek retellings. They're not my speed. They're just not for me. I I'm just not into them. I can't explain why. I've read a couple. So I've read The Song of Achilles, Circe, uh, and Stoneblind. And just like, they just don't hit for me. And I think for me, I personally would just rather read the original myth than read a retelling. I think like The Song of Achilles, like, definitely like made some like changes to the story, and so did Circe and Stoneblind to a certain extent, but I think that like ultimately I'd rather just read the original. Yeah, it's just not for me, but it might be for you. I don't know. Everyone in my book club has been like loving it and all texting in the group chat like, this book is amazing. So there's like a huge amount of people that love this book. I'm just not one of them. But this story follows Clytemnestra, who she is again the wife of Agamemnon, and she originally grew up the daughter of the king of Sparta. And in Sparta, they're like very much like, I guess I could say violent, and so much of their society is built off of like war and winning in battle, and fighting one another. Like, you often see Clytemnestra and her sisters and her friends in these like wrestling matches with each other, and there's so much built into like this culture around honor and winning battles. So in Sparta, Agamemnon comes to Sparta, and Clytemnestra is already married to this man Tantalus, and they have a baby together. And essentially Agamemnon like stages a coup, kind of, not really, but he like basically collaborates with Clytemnestra's dad to kill Tantalus, her husband, and her baby, and marry her himself. So he's like, in this book, he's like a terrible person, and he takes her home to his kingdom, Mycenae, and basically just abuses her for years. And they have children together, kind of not really by her choice. And but she ends up like loving her children and like kind of coming into her own in this weird way. And like things continue to happen where like horrible things happen where one of her children is I'm like afraid of spoiling like centuries old myths, but Agamemnon, her husband, and Odysseus, the dude from the Odyssey, is like they're going out onto their ship for the Trojan War, and they're like, we need to be motivated, so we can do that by sacrificing and killing a young woman. And so they decide to kill Iphigenia, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, who is Agamemnon and Clytemnestra's daughter. So again, we see like this cycle of violence where like Clytemnestra's father was like, conspiring against her, and now Iphigenia's father is also conspiring against her. So after that happens, Clytemnestra is just like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this anymore, and I hate Agamemnon, and I want to kill him. So she ends up getting together with Agamemnon's cousin, and they have like an affair, and then they conspire to kill Agamemnon when he gets home from war. So anyways, the reason I didn't love this book is because I just didn't feel like it added much to the original myth. I just feel like I'd rather read the myth, and I just kind of feel like there wasn't anything new being said. I still haven't had the book club where we're going to talk about this book. But who knows, like my opinion might change after that, because I always find myself like enjoying a book more after I get to chat about it with my book club or just like with other people in general, which is part of why I started BookTube. So my like icy heart about this book might melt a little bit, but I just didn't mesh with it. But yeah, it ultimately just not for me. I gave it 0.75 stars. It's just, it was a slog. It was a slog to get through. The last book that I finished in January, the shortest of them all, and that is The Cake by Becca Brunstetter. It's a play. And this play is about a woman who owns a bakery. Her name is Della. And Della is like, she is like trying so hard to be the perfect woman. So like she she follows every ingredient to a T in the recipe. She recently got accepted to America's version of the Great British Bake Off. So she's really excited about that and trying to perfect her recipes. And she's just ultimately like this godly, religious woman who is just really obsessed with making cakes. So when the play opens, and her late best friend's daughter comes to her and asks her to bake a cake for her wedding, and Della at first is really excited and like, this is like your mom's dream. I always have wanted to bake you a cake for your wedding. And then finds out that her best friend's daughter, Jen, is marrying a woman. So Della is like definitely homophobic, and is like, I don't know if I want to bake you a cake. And so the whole play is kind of about Della's journey to potentially accepting and baking a cake for Jen and her partner Macy. And I think that like there's some really interesting things that this play says about how it feels to be a person who comes from a place that doesn't accept who you are, and how you still have like part of your heart in that place even though it's not safe for you to live there, and how torn up that can make you. I got this play because I'm auditioning for a play, like local community theater play, and I'm gonna do a monologue from The Cake. So I wanted to have the play to understand like the full context of the characters and everything. And the monologue I'm doing is from Jen's perspective, and she's coming into the bakery to talk to Della and saying like she's so in love with Macy, and they're a family and they do all these really cute things together, and they're just like a really happy couple. And she's really upset that Della can't understand their love and can't see Jen for like who she's always been and love her all the same. And it's just like it's really touching to learn more about Jen and Macy and like why they love each other, and Jen's journey to like find acceptance in her hometown. I would love to see this play live. I watched a couple monologues of it on YouTube, and the woman who plays Della is the woman who plays the mother in that 70s show. And it was so good. Like the monologues, the previews of the monologues that I watched on YouTube. I think it would be really fun to get to see this in person. There's some scenes that are a little bit more like, I wouldn't say like experimental, but just kind of like go in a different direction than what you were expecting. There were parts that were really funny and really endearing. And so one of the other things that's interesting about The Cake was released in 2017 and was first put on in California. And the thing that's super interesting about The Cake, and kind of like somewhat unsettling about reading this is that this is still like, cases like this are still up for question in our legal system. So back in 2018, there was a Supreme Court case about a baker in Colorado who didn't want to make a cake for an LGBTQ couple. And the state of Colorado had laws on the books that banned discrimination against, you know, like a whole host of identities, including LGBTQ identity. And the Supreme Court ruled like narrowly to honor the Colorado baker's right to religious freedom. And that was in 2018. And then again in 2023, I was just reading about this before making this video. The same baker from Colorado filed another case because he didn't want to bake a cake for a transgender woman. And so like a cake celebrating her transgender identity. So I know that this was probably written like as that original case in 2018 was like moving its way through the courts, but there's like part of me that felt that this play was somewhat outdated, and I was just like, we've come so far since 2018, like the world is so different. And then you look around and you're like, no, it's not. There's still like the same baker is still like trying to go to court to not make cakes for people. There was also a case in Colorado, again, like what's going on in Colorado? There was another case in Colorado where like a graphic designer didn't want to design materials for a gay couple's wedding. So the cake by Becca Brunstetter, I think it's very timely, unfortunately. But yeah, I gave this play 3 stars. I have my audition in a couple days. So I bought a couple other plays too. So when I bought the cake. So I'm really excited to read those because I forgot how much I love reading plays. Those are the books I read in January. I'd love to know if any of you read any of these books. Comment down below so we can chat about them. But also if you had a favorite book that you read in January, I would love to know about it. So I look forward to seeing you soon. I have some really fun ideas planned for the next couple of weeks in February. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.